We think ancient Egypt was just pyramids, mummies, and gold masks. That is the clean museum version, polished until it behaves. The real Egypt was stranger, louder, and much more practical. To Egyptians, the universe was not stable by default. Order had to be fed, washed, written, planted, and defended. A god could need breakfast before the sun fully rose. A dead relative could receive a complaint letter from home. An enemy could be attacked by smashing his name in clay. A goddess could be calmed by beer dyed like blood. And chaos itself had to be burned again and again. These rituals were not random decoration for temple walls. They were reality maintenance, performed with objects, words, and timing. Here are 10 Egyptian rituals. Almost nobody explains properly. The last one shows what Egypt feared more than death. Number 10 begins with a party that was not just a party. Egyptian texts connect drunkenness festivals with Hathor, Sekhmet, and Mut. In the myth, humanity nearly dies under a furious lioness goddess. The rescue plan is not a sword, but red beer. The fields are flooded with beer stain to look like blood. Sekhmet drinks it, becomes drunk, and the slaughter stops. Later festival calendars at the Mut temple mention these revelries. One entry places the festival on Thoth, day 20. Another links red beer with the beautiful feast of the valley. So yes, sacred intoxication could mean cosmic damage control. Not modern clubbing, not comedy beer goggles, not frat history. It was controlled ritual chaos, aimed at cooling divine rage. That is why this ritual is so unsettlingly human. People were not escaping religion, they were entering it through drink. The scary idea is simple. Joy could disarm destruction. Egypt turned beer into a mythological brake pedal. But once the goddess calmed down, the gods still needed service. Number 9 is the daily god statue ritual. In many temples, the divine image was treated like a living presence. UCL describes daily cult offerings of food, drink, clothing, and ointment. The point was not decoration. It maintained the fabric of the universe. Priests entered areas ordinary people usually never saw. They opened the shrine, purified the space, and approached carefully. Then the god was washed, dressed, scented, and offered meals. Imagine royal room service, except the customer is cosmic. The statue was not simply a statue in Egyptian thought. It was a place where the divine could become accessible. That makes the temple feel less like a building. It becomes a locked machine room for reality. If the god is cared for, order feels cared for. If the ritual fails, the world feels less protected. This was daily labor, not occasional spiritual decoration. Ancient holiness could look like laundry, breakfast, and perfume. And that same logic followed people after death. Number 8 is the opening of the mouth. A mummy was not finished when the wrapping ended. A statue was not complete just because a sculptor shaped it. The ritual touched the mouth and eyes with special tools. The goal was to let the dead breathe, see, speak, and eat. The Global Egyptian Museum notes Reckmeyer's tomb shows 75 acts. That number alone tells you this was no tiny blessing. It was a full activation sequence for body, image, and spirit. Think less zombie movie, more ancient power switch. The Egyptians were solving a practical afterlife problem. A dead person needed senses to receive offerings. A divine image needed ritual life to become effective. This is why a mouth mattered so much. Without a working mouth, offerings could not reach the person. So the ceremony reopened communication between worlds. Death did not end access. Ritual rebuilt the channel. And sometimes the living used that channel very directly. Number 7 is letters to the dead. The living did not only remember their dead relatives, they sometimes wrote to them with urgent practical requests. RCE describes petitions about illness, fertility, and inheritance disputes. The letters range from the late Old Kingdom to the late period. The latest known examples reach the 7th century BCE. That means this habit survived for over 1,000 years. Some were written on bowls, papyrus, linen, stelae, or jar stands. The cow bowl even names a dispute over stolen inheritance. Imagine writing customer support, but the agent is your dead father. This was not soft grief, it was family politics after burial. The dead were expected to help, intervene, or stop trouble. The tomb became a mailbox with supernatural authority. That idea is funny until you realize how emotional it is. Egyptians did not think relationships ended cleanly at death. Your family could still owe you help from the other side. But before life became afterlife, birth had its own ritual battlefield. Number 6 is the magical birth brick. Childbirth in ancient Egypt was dangerous, physical, and spiritually exposed. Penn Museum describes an Abydos birth brick made of unfired mud. It measured about 36 centimeters in length. The brick is around 3,700 years old. Its sides carried gods and demons meant to protect mother and child. Texts show women could deliver while squatting on 2 mud bricks. So birth did not happen alone in an empty room. It happened inside a tiny magical security system. The baby was linked to the sun god's daily rebirth. That made every birth a small sunrise against danger. The demons here were not just horror decorations. They were guards standing at the doorway of life. Imagine a delivery room where monsters work security. That is the weird tenderness of Egyptian magic. It protects the softest moment with the strangest faces. And animals also became part of this divine messaging system. Number 5 is animal mummy offerings. Modern people hear animal mummies and think royal pets. Some were pets, but that is only part of the story. British Museum lists cats, crocodiles, bulls, ibises, snakes, and fish. Its project includes about 500 animal mummies outside Egypt. Manchester Museum notes animal mummies were prepared in their millions. Many functioned as votive offerings to specific gods. A pilgrim could buy an animal mummy like a wrapped prayer. The animal became a message, not just a body. That is why this ritual can feel uncomfortable today. Devotion created a whole economy of breeding, wrapping, and offering. Faith was no longer only spoken. It was packaged. A tiny ibis mummy could carry a human request upward. A crocodile mummy could connect a person to Sobek's power. This was religion with supply chains and sacred inventory. The ritual turns animals into letters with fur, beaks, or scales. But Egypt also grew gods from soil and grain. Number 4 is the Koyak Osiris growing ritual. Osiris was the murdered god who returned through life and fertility. During Koyak, priests made small Osiris forms from earth and grain. The Met describes Osiris bricks used as planters in later periods. Some contained soil mixed with cereal grains and linen. Water made the grains sprout from the god-shaped form. That is not just gardening with religious branding. It is resurrection made visible in slow motion. Egypt's fields depended on the Nile, mud, seed, and timing. So Osiris was not only remembered, he was reenacted. A sprouting figure said death could turn into green life. The ritual made the invisible promise physically visible. Imagine planting a corpse and watching hope grow from it. That is why the image is both beautiful and strange. The god becomes a seed, and the seed becomes evidence. Egyptian resurrection was not abstract, it had roots. But protection also required attacking danger before it arrived. Number 3 is execration magic. This is where Egypt turned hatred into paperwork and choreography. Names of enemies were written on clay figures, bowls, or objects. UCLA's Egyptology entry says the target was textually and kinetically destroyed. That could mean binding, breaking, piercing, burying, or burning. The enemies might be foreigners, rebels, or supernatural threats. This was not random rage from one angry person. It was state defense performed through symbolic violence. If your name was trapped, your power was trapped. If your image was broken, your threat was weakened. Egyptian magic treated representation as a real handle on reality. Modern people delete contacts. Egyptians destroyed names in clay. The ritual says something dark about power. Before winning outside, they tried to win inside the invisible world. It was war before the war, fought with objects. And sometimes the object was not a body, but a pot. That brings us to the ritual sound Egypt wanted enemies to hear. Number 2 is breaking the red pots. Red in Egypt could carry danger, heat, blood, and chaos. This ritual centered on destroying red ceramic vessels. Ain Sham's research describes it as a destructive magical rite. It was practiced since the Old Kingdom, according to that study. The rite could protect the living king from real or fictive enemies. Other work also connects red pot breaking with funerary protection. Either way, the action matters. The pot must break. Words alone were not enough. The object had to shatter. The sound becomes part of the magic. Crack, smash, silence, threat reduced. A pot is perfect because it can hold something inside. Break the vessel, and the danger loses its container. That is simple enough for a child to understand, but serious enough for a kingdom to perform. Egyptian ritual loved physical metaphors that did actual work, and its darkest target was not human at all. Number 1 is the overthrowing of Apep. Apep was the chaos serpent, enemy of the sun god Ra. Every night, Ra's solar journey faced this cosmic threat. The ritual did not politely ask chaos to behave. It made an image of Apep in wax or on papyrus. The text says Apep could be trampled with the left foot 4 times. It also describes burning a wax image before Ra. The rite could be repeated at day, night, and festival moments. That repetition is the point. Chaos always returns. The Egyptians did not think sunrise was casual. Morning was evidence that order had survived another attack. This is why Apep belongs at the end of the video. He is not just a monster, he is collapse itself. The ritual is basically a daily argument with non-existence. Burn the serpent, protect the sun, restart the world. Ancient Egypt feared a universe with no order. And that reveals what all 10 rituals were secretly doing. These rituals look strange only if we separate religion from maintenance. Ancient Egyptians did not make that separation. A statue needed care because a god needed access. A mummy needed a mouth because offerings needed a root. A dead relative could help because family continued after burial. A birth brick guarded the doorway into life. An animal mummy carried prayer in a wrapped body. An Osiris seedbed made resurrection grow in dirt. Enemy names were broken before enemies crossed the border. Red pots shattered danger before danger shattered people. Apep burned because chaos was never permanently defeated. So the real story is not weird rituals. The real story is a civilization trying to keep reality alive. They fed order, dressed order, planted order, and defended order. Ancient Egypt was not just a museum of death. It was a cosmic control room run by human hands.